So we were arrested for felony cultivation, and my son was removed from my custody immediately. They cited only that we were in court and that they didn't know what the outcome of court would be. The house itself was deemed safe many times. We went through all the classes they asked us to. We did everything they asked us to prove that we are good parents and that we, weren't putting our son in harm's way. Didn't matter.
Mm,
And thankfully, they gave him, well, I say thankfully, but he went to my mother's house
okay.
for about,
So he was with family. So that
he
was,
was
yeah.
with family. They were not prepared for a child. My mother had
Wow.
her
Of
own
course not.
um,
It would, right? Yeah. That's
addiction. Well, she had
okay.
alcoholism.
Okay. That's another
So
problem, right?
sh-
Right.
he
They're,
should not have been watching him at all.
isn't
But
that ironic? Let's give it to
right,
the alcohol, the person with
right.
alcoholism.
And
Wow.
yeah, that was a big pill to swallow. I had to even call CPS several times and say, hey, she is intoxicated right now with my son in the car
Oh,
with her. And they
I've,
wouldn't do anything about it.
wow. That's crazy.
Um,
Okay.
because
So,
alcohol is okay and, cannabis isn't.
sure.
And so they removed him from my custody for
Okay.
um about 9 months. I was allowed to
Nine
see
months.
him for an overnight once a week at my home, and I was allowed to visit him for 2 hours every other day with supervision.
And so that happened how many months after the drug test then? Like that
He was
was
18 months when that happened.
wow.
So
So
he
it
was a year
took
and a
that
half.
long and that just like that space of
Well,
time they
and
were
it's not
deciding
that the
what to
drug
do or
test,
somebody
it's not
snitched
like
and
the drug
somebody
test was
okay.
connected to the law,
Got it.
but
Okay.
when it's a small town, everybody knows
Okay.
everything.
Okay.
And my medical records and my files so that like if the cops wanted to look up those records, they would
I see.
see what CPS had. And
Wow.
they all work. There's like 20 people involved in that town. They all know
That's
everything.
crazy. That's crazy.
So yeah, and so he was, and I was extremely anxious during that time because he was a golden blonde, ice blue eyed, just adorable little guy. And that's a really sensitive time to adopt because they're still very moldable, but you've gotten them past the little baby
Oh
time.
yeah. Mm.
So that and I had a lot of people coming up saying, "You watch them, watch them, watch them. Don't let them put him up for adoption or in foster
Oh my
care."
gosh. Wow.
So and then
And how long
here I
did so
am
that went
with
on
P
for how long again? How long?
That
For nine
was
months.
he was a year and a half, and then it went on for
Okay.
9 months before I
Wow.
got him back. Um,
Wow. And what triggered
yeah,
that then? So what had to happen for you to get him back then? Nothing. It
my
just
lawyer finished my case, and I got a pretrial
wow.
diversion with active
Crazy.
probation for five
So
years. I did active probation for a year, and
wow.
they have
Wow.
never looked at me or said anything to me since.
Since
But that was on my soft background, not the hard one, but the soft background. So if I
okay.
tried to get local jobs, they would see
No.
it every time.
Sure.
My name is Lauren Bratcher. I'm the Deputy Director for Kentucky Normal. I've been serving in that role since 2017. I am on other boards for foundations and nonprofits that help with community issues. And I'm also an entrepreneur and own several of my own businesses. So when I was graduating in high school, we really started seeing the opioid epidemic take off in Kentucky. And so I was very wary about pain pills and taking those kinds of drugs. But I suffer from endometriosis, stage 4, and I've been having surgeries for it since I was 17. My mother had to beg the doctor to do a surgery to diagnose me because he said I was too young. And I've been suffering with extreme daily pain since I was a teenager. And so I couldn't avoid the topic of pain management. And it was common back then for people to have cannabis, share it with you. It was just around all the time. And at one of my graduation parties, I tried and smoked a joint. I had been drinking a few beers, so I threw up really bad after that. I learned what crossfading was after that experience. But the next day, I noticed that my pain had stopped, that my inflammation seemed to be down, and it lasted for several days. Um, and so while back in the, late 90s, early 2000s, nobody really, well, some people knew the science behind cannabis, but it wasn't a information that was readily available. Um, and so these were things that we were kind of learning as more and more resources became available through the internet. Um, my doctor had told me I would never have children, so I wasn't really considering pregnancy with cannabis. I just knew that it helped me feel better. It stopped my pain, and it stopped my anxiety. I didn't find out too much later that from a childhood accident, I'd been living with PTSD. So just another thing that I was using cannabis for without even realizing that I was using it medically.
So you
Um,
were
so
using, so let me stop you. So you were using before, so you were already using cannabis. Is that what I'm getting?
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
Yes, yes. In high school, everyone, this is Kentucky. Everyone smoked cigarettes. This was tobacco country. It was almost kind of you were supposed to smoke cigarettes because that's what your county produced. So it was very common back then. And I was very conservative. We went to church 3 times a week. Um, and I had been through the DARE program all through elementary up until middle school. So drugs were bad, and I never had anything to do with it until, I got into out of high school and was graduating. But it was always around me. And it was never an issue unless you had conservative parents and they would ground you and things like that. It wasn't until I really kind of got into the job market in the early 2000s that we really started to see drug testing happening everywhere. And like President Bush in the maybe 2001, 2002 area, somewhere in there,
Mhm.
um, had passed a bill that you couldn't get federal funding for college if you had any kind of drug charge, um, even a misdemeanor with cannabis. So it became really a big topic in our minds as young people. But I had never tried it, and I was against it until I, got out of high school and just tried it as a party. It was fun. Everybody else was doing it.
Okay.
But
And
I realized I had really good benefits afterwards, and that led me to think, okay, there's something more to this.
okay, so we're talking, what year is that, that you discovered that with endometriosis and
I
and
was
and the benefits?
diagnosed. Yeah, I was diagnosed in a junior senior year. I
Oh,
was missing several days of school a month from the pain and exhaustion,
okay. So
and
it's in
everything
high
that
school,
came.
really, that okay.
Yeah,
So it really was in high
yeah,
school.
and by the time I was 21, I'd already had 3 surgeries.
Oh, wow.
I had been given pain pills and things. I did never liked how they made me feel, and I didn't feel like it really helped my pain. It just helped me ignore it. So, endometriosis, from what we know, is where the endometrial cells that grow inside of your uterus, that come out in your cycle every month, they grow outside of your uterus, and so you can have them on top of your lungs. They can go all the way up to your brain. Mine is all in my digestive system and bowels and intestines and stuff. So it's not only a cycle pain, but an everyday day pain as well.
And so, in addition to that, it can cause infertility and whatnot, right?
Yes.
Yes. So,
Yes, it can cause a lot of different issues. It's, when you look at the laparoscopy, it almost looks like mold growing on pink tissue.
mm,
It's dark. It looks angry, and it's not supposed to be there. So the body can heal, well, try to protect itself by forming cysts over those places. It can do a lot of strange things because the body is always trying to fight it off. So it's almost like living with a cancer, sort of, because you're like, so your body's always trying to fix this problem where you have cells where they do not belong. So it is in a lot of uh, circles considered autoimmune issues as well. So I had continued to use cannabis up until 2003 when I moved out to Vegas. And the intention was to go to Oregon. Um, but we moved to Las Vegas and worked there for a year or so, and continued to learn about cannabis. And really, the education spiked a lot during that time because we had access to people on the West Coast, and they were teaching us the things that they knew that previously had kind of been hidden. So we had moved out to Oregon, or to Las Vegas, and then about a year later, we moved out to Oregon, to Eugene, Oregon. So that is where I got my crash course in cannabis. This was back in 2003, 2004. The Emerald Triangle in California was alive and thriving. I saw cannabis plants that were bigger than pine trees, and they would have the Prop 215 letters, you know, uh, nailed to the trees around their six plants that were bigger than the trees around them. It was incredible. I don't know that many people can see that anymore, really. Um, but so out in Oregon and out in Eugene, we learned a lot more about cannabis and a lot more about using it not casually, but like a remedy. It wasn't talked about like medicine, but it was talked about the same as you would suggest someone to try aloe vera or castor oil for a rash or something. So it really helped for me. It helped normalize and heal the shame of helping myself with something natural. Because up until that point, I really felt like if that was the only way I was going to get relief from pain, then I was going to have to accept that I don't think I considered it a sin back then. I was kind of past all that, but I did consider it something that was going to ostracize me from my community and my family, job opportunities, especially in a conservative state like Kentucky. So, it was a conscious choice to decide to use cannabis and defend myself with that. And like I said, it was very, very early on in this cannabis journey, which the 215, Prop 215 had just been passed in California. So
Okay.
it was very early.
All right. And so you were more comfortable. And so what kind of cannabis products did you use? And how did you determine, talk to us about that, how you learned about that?
Yeah. Well, I had only smoked for a very long time because that's all I knew and that's all anybody else really knew. I mean, I had been offered hash and extracts and things like that, but it was still you had to burn it, you had to inhale it, you had to heat it up and inhale it. Um, and I had tried edibles a little bit, but that wasn't something that you could just get on the shelf. Someone had to make it special for you, or you had to make a special purchase of a lot of flowers so that you could make edibles, right? So I knew about them, but I didn't understand them as far as a medical application.
Okay.
Which now, when I teach other people about it, I say, "Hey, smoke goes up, edibles go down. If your problem's in your head, you need to smoke. If your problem's in your body, you need an edible."
I love
And
that. I
so,
love that
yeah,
so
I mean,
much. That's awesome.
it's very simple. I mean, it's very complicated, but at the same time, it's very
Yeah,
simple.
that's very simple. That
It's
makes it very simple. I love that.
Yeah, and you put it closest to the problem. So if I had somebody come in with tell me they have prostate cancer and they want some advice, now that I know what I know, it wouldn't be, well, just smoke a lot until you feel better, because that
We
doesn't help
know.
your medical
We
issues.
know
Now,
now, right? We
right, we
know
know now.
now that it's
Now,
not the best way. Yeah, right, right.
yes, 100%. And it's something that if you do have body pain, if you do have issues in your body, you're going to have a lot of anxiety. Your nerves are going to be I say your nerves are raw from being in pain all the time. So you can feel like smoking really solves a lot of issues when really it's just kind of resetting your nervous system and your pain tolerance levels, and not necessarily healing the issue. But that's, I think, why so many people stick with the smoking part because it's instant and because it calms so many things in your brain and nervous system
Yeah,
that
no.
it is very beneficial
Well, I
for
find it,
patients.
I grow my own a lot of it, and I tend to I fight that, not smoking it as much because really that's what's available because I'm growing it, I can't always
Mhm.
make it into the products that I need or whatever, and I should. It takes a lot more work to do that.
It
So,
does.
mm,
It does. And like I said, up until this point, I had just had smoked. I knew it was important. I knew it was harmless.
okay.
We were talking about pregnancy. I had been in Oregon this whole time. Um, I did not get pregnant. I didn't have my first son till I was 27. And it was just a shock to everyone. My mother thought she wasn't going to have grandchildren. It was a whole thing, right? So I had my first child. It was very hard on me. I'm a short person, but I also have, a lot of issues with my reproductive system. So um, it was very hard on me. And don't get me started on the way women are treated in the birthing centers and
Oh,
hospitals. That's traumatic in
no.
and of itself.
Speak your
Um,
truth. Yeah.
well,
Trust
I
me.
mean, that's a whole other class,
Right.
college level class.
Got it.
So when I had become pregnant, not knowing, not expecting to ever be pregnant, but knowing that I had already established a routine with using cannabis, then more for my PTSD than my endometriosis. I just didn't realize that that's what was going on. But I started doing some research, and thankfully by then we had a little better internet resources. We could do more than the Encyclopedia Britannica, right?
Okay.
And the Encarta Encyclopedia on the CD-ROM. So we could actually do some research, and I found a really famous study. Well, it's famous now, um, about Jamaican mothers because it's common. It's not a social, um, moral implication that something, you're not moral like it is here. um, Women were very common, I mean, very open with what they used, how they used it, how often they used it, how they thought it helped them go through their everyday lives, and how they felt that it helped them through their pregnancies.
Hmm.
And the best part about that was because they were honest. It was normal. It wasn't something to be hidden. And it's a very common thing for them to
Hmm.
use it for nausea, for pain,
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
anxiety, for just so many things. And it's not all just smoking.
Right.
It's
Right.
ingestible, it's topical. It may be more THC than I mean, more CBD than THC
Right. Right.
when you're making these things. I mean, we also have to take into consideration what strains they were using in the 80s in Jamaica.
Okay.
I imagine it was probably more like a land race back then, or,
So
a little more common.
how did that bring you to then? What did that do to your, learning about the Jamaican study? Where
Well,
did that bring us?
I did talk to my doctors about what I could do to manage my pain while I was pregnant if I didn't use cannabis. And that was a very
Okay.
hard conversation because even then, my son was born in, like I said, 2007, so he just turned 18. And my doctors, I mean, just because I tested positive when I went in to get the test, I had already been flagged by the CPS. So
Oh,
they were already
wow.
watching me. Oh yeah, in Kentucky, in a southern state, absolutely. That's one of the reasons that we have an issue with um, young mothers or low income mothers going and getting really early care because
Okay,
they didn't know
so
they were pregnant and they need
so let
to
me
pass a
stop
drug
you there.
test.
Let's catch up here. How did criminalization and or stigma play a part? So you told us that you were afraid of the stigma and whatnot, but do tell us you have had some run-ins with the law. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so talk to
So
us about that.
I had gotten pregnant with my oldest son. I was in Oregon. Um, like I said, there was no plans to have a kid. It was very, whoa, everything's changing right now. Um, I ended up moving back to Kentucky where my family, my mom, my grandma, my dad, my brothers, everybody lives here. So I moved back to Kentucky, and that's how I found my doctor. And they drug tested me the very first test, and all the way throughout pregnancy. Um, and I did try my very best not to use cannabis, but the pregnancy was very hard because I didn't have that pain management.
Mm.
Um, but like I said, we were already, uh, flagged by CPS because of that.
How did that
And
happen?
then
Like,
when
how were you flagged? Like, talk to me about
they
that.
turned it in, I have a pregnant woman who tested for drugs.
Wow. Okay. So your
And I
so
mean,
your
my
healthcare
system has,
provider turned you in. Is that what we're hearing?
well, it's common practice to have that in your file, to have that
Did
flag so that
they
people
what
know.
did they say something to you before that or no? Just it was just boom. Just oh,
It was
we
like after I had him, they said they were going to drug test him right then and there, that hours after birth, um, because I had tested positive when I first went in.
and so that's boom, that's it. And then that's
That's it. And my
wow.
system has never had anything in it other than cannabis. I don't
And so
take any pill, like I don't take any pain pills, no opioids. I don't do other drugs. I just
right.
cannabis,
Right. Well,
coffee.
so what,
That's
talk to
about
us.
it.
So tell me, like, so you're telling us, that, yes, they turned you in, but tell me about like how that really went down. I mean, they
So,
literally came in and said, I mean, tell us really the details, how that happened.
so when he was, like I said, when he was born, they had drug tested him. And he did not have THC in his system, but it was
Okay.
very violating for that to happen. Like, are you kidding me? This kid has been on Earth for all of 2 hours, and he's already been drug tested by the government.
Wow. Yeah,
And
that is something. Yes, already
yeah,
something. Yeah.
yes.
Wow. I hadn't thought
So,
about that.
so we went through about a year and a half. Um, my son's father had brought our grow from Oregon to our home in Kentucky. Um, and I'm not sure how or what, but somebody said they smelled cannabis coming from our home. I don't know who it was. And this was
Sure.
Labor Day of 2009.
Okay.
They came to our house. It was Labor Day, so of course there's no lawyer offices open. There's no bails bondmen, so nothing's you can't do anything.
Right.
They had to get special warrants to be able to do it that day because it just felt very planned.
Yeah. It was very
Um,
strategic, I'm sure. Very
very
strategic.
strategic.
Yeah.
Yes. And although we know of high level people doing the same things or with even stronger drugs, I wasn't in that circle, so it wasn't allowed for me, right?
Mhm. What do
Um,
you wish more people understood about cannabis and your situation with endometriosis and pregnancy? What do you wish people understood?
I think that all addiction, all self-medication, is like a medical issue versus a moral issue. If someone is using alcohol too much, if somebody is using cannabis, even though they're told that it's illegal, there's something going on there that we need to understand, not just judge and throw away. My mother had PTSD from the same incident that I did. Um, she tried using cannabis. I know I was very hard on her because I had gone through DARE class and I was told that it was horrible. And so she was horrible for using it, you know. And she chose pills and drinking and she died at 65.
Mm. You didn't tell
Why would
us what
anybody
is
want to
the
judge other people?
right, yeah. So tell us what that incident is because you've mentioned it a couple times. So tell us what if you don't mind, that
The
incident that
incident?
they gave you the PTSD and your mother. Yeah, I know what
Yeah.
I'm.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, yeah, it was a freak accident. My dad worked at the factory all the time. We lived down by the Gulf of Mexico in southern Texas. Rattlesnakes were really, really bad back then. And my mom had to go out and mow the lawn so that the kids could play. And we had been three kids in the house with her while my dad was on shift work in Texas. and my brother was 9 months old. I'm pretty sure my mother had postpartum depression now that I'm a mother looking back. And she was overwhelmed and she didn't have help. She was isolated. She went out to mow. My youngest brother was in one of those little walkers with wheels, and it was just for the first time ever he moved. And when the lawnmower came around the patio, he moved in that little walker and it dumped over. And so the riding lawnmower covered him up. And we didn't know what was going on.
Wow.
My mom screamed at me, picked the lawnmower up in between her legs. I pulled my little brother out by his feet, blood squirting everywhere. My mother's, oh, you were supposed to watch him. What were you, I don't know. I was 6. I was playing. I don't know what I was doing,
Wow.
right?
Yeah. Wow.
My
That's
middle brother was there as well. He was 2. And we wrap him up. There's screaming happening. I'm sure I just associated because it all seems very factual, and not emotional like it should be. And she called 911, called my dad. Well, my dad had actually had an accident and his finger looks like this from when he was young. He worked on a
wow.
milking farm and it got caught in a milking machine. So the first thing my dad
Goodness.
said was, "What about his fingers?" So
Oh,
then mom starts screaming, "Go to the yard and look for his fingers."
oh,
It was
oh,
it was insane. It was insane. Uh,
oh,
and
okay.
it was the 80s.
Wow.
So the
Oh,
baby got
wow.
doctored up. We had grandma for a
Wow.
few days and we all went on along our business. Like it was
But it affects you
just an
today.
accident.
That something like
Oh
that
yeah.
affects everybody,
Oh
of
yeah.
course. Well, thank
I
you for
had gotten in
sharing
a
that.
wreck years later, and it wasn't until I was just recently, within the last few years, that I remembered that there were children in the back of the truck when we got into this wreck, and they were screaming. And when I realized that I had trauma from my brother's wreck,
Okay.
and then went and told my therapist, and we were like, boom, we just identified 2 PTSD
Wow.
incidents just that
Interesting.
quickly.
That's
Yep.
fascinating. So,
Yeah,
so
and a lot of things got better after we just said it out loud.
wonderful. So that helps. It does help to talk about
Mhm.
it, right? I mean, and
And for
like,
somebody to say, "Hey, you're a kid. It wasn't your fault."
no. And
That should,
that's the same thing with cannabis shame too, right? If we talk about it,
yes.
we can talk about it. And in your role as, with Kentucky Normal and your other roles that you have with cannabis and your journey, and you've learned a lot, what impact can we look back now, if any, have you observed, just about even like your child's development or just things that have happened after that you're just like, wow, okay, that makes sense now because I know this now and now that, and what has that impacted in your life now, the way you think about cannabis?
Yeah, well, I mean, choosing cannabis for myself made me realize that the world isn't everything it seems to be, that you need to question, don't accept, keep asking, but why? But why is it illegal? We used to use it in the early 1900s. What changed? And never just accepting what is told to you. And so because of that, I spent several 10 years in shame after my son was after I was arrested and my son was taken away. But then I met my now husband and we spent an evening talking about normal and how we wished we had a Kentucky Normal chapter. And probably 6 months after that, it just kind of happened, where Kentucky wasn't going to have a normal chapter unless we took it.
That's
And so
wonderful.
we took it and we learned at one step at a time. And I really think we aren't even started yet.
No,
And,
no,
and
talk
and I
us.
know that we've come a long way, but I don't even feel like we've
Yes.
got started yet.
Well, tell us about some of the successes you've had with Kentucky Normal and in your advocacy.
Well, like I said, we got started in 2017. Just we were in the industry back then, and we knew we had to do something to bring it to Kentucky and bring this access to people here. We have a really high opioid rate, really high cancer rate, really high obesity and diabetes rates. We need it here. We want to help our people. And so we worked on that for quite some time. And then in 2023, well, actually in 2022 was when our breaks really started happening. And we participated in an exhibit for the governor under we call it the tunnel, and it goes between the Capitol Annex where the offices are and the Capitol Rotunda, where the Senate chambers and the rallies happen and all that kind of stuff. So we put up a big exhibit with pictures of Kentuckians who were patients who wanted access. And then we also had like fact sheet posters with, like normals, principles of a safe consumer access, and things like that with quotes from Sanjay Gupta and statistics from American Pediatric or American Cancer Society, just things like that that couldn't be ignored.
Okay.
We lined one side of the tunnel with empty pill bottles that had stickers that said "People over profits." That only got to stay up for one day, and then we had to
And
take it
that,
back down.
and
But the
you've
rest of
been
it
able
stayed.
to, so you have medical now, right? So talk to us about
Yes,
like
and
that.
so because of that tunnel, the governor came down, visited, talked to us, and that our sessions start in January. So that following session, that was December 22, in January 23, we started in earnest working. Well, the governor started working in earnest for medical cannabis, and we supported that and offered whatever advice and support we could
Okay.
along the way. And then by March 2023, we had medical cannabis had been passed,
Wonderful.
um, and we were invited to the bill signing. So,
Okay. And so where are
I
we
got
now? Do you
got all
have
my good pictures.
dispensaries? Do you have dispensaries or where is
Dispensaries,
that?
we have one that is approved. I
Okay.
don't know. I mean, I guess technically it's open, but it's not, there's no product in it yet.
So what
So
does the
the doctors
medical
are,
include? Like what does your medical in Kentucky include?
so we have non-combustible flower,
Okay.
um, which everybody is like, oh no. And we go, just okay, just
Okay, that
be quiet
sounds
and calm down.
okay. All
It'll be
right.
okay.
Okay.
Um, and we all know packs and volcanoes and things like
Sure.
that exist. So
Right.
we're going to be fine, people.
So
We do have
dry vaping and that.
edibles,
Yeah, okay. So dry vape is okay.
and
Okay,
and
gotcha.
oils, and we have a
Okay.
full medical program.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about Kentucky is hemp is very viable here.
Okay.
We were once the largest producer in hemp, um, back before it was criminalized. And so it is still a very important part of things around here. And so I think that you will see watching Kentucky that it's a bit of a testing ground for, the CBD oils and the topicals and the hemp-derived cannabinoids because they are cheaper, because we are a lower income state with a lot of disability patients.
Okay.
Dispensaries will be expensive for them. And
Yeah.
even though we have 48 dispensaries spread out across Kentucky, it was broken up like our health regions are, so that
Just
everyone would
like
have access.
just like Virginia. So it's
Hmm.
similar to Virginia. And, you could probably look at our history and it might be, to see what may, hopefully you won't have the same stumbling blocks, but, as we've had and learn
Well,
from our, transgressions,
I
if
think
you will, or
because,
whatever, or
yeah, and I think because we were once the top producers, and well, first in hemp, in the 80s and 90s, we were tobacco. And when the hemp program started in 2000, 13, I think, Kentucky was one of at the forefront of that, and continues to lead in the hemp side of things.
right.
But I think we're seeing a merging of the medical wellness side of hemp and then the medical side of cannabis, and how they can serve each other, and how maybe, someone like me or any patient could theoretically, I already do this, but theoretically move through hemp industry for CBD, topicals, skincare, all kinds of things of that nature,
Oh, yeah.
um, and into medical for stronger dosing, for RSO, for flower, for more
Wonderful.
targeted, where your hemp stuff is going to be more just like overall wellness. Take CBD every day for inflammation.
Yeah.
And so I think Kentucky's going to be a good state to watch
Okay.
as to how that's going to work out. I want people to visit our website. It's
Okay.
kynorml.org. We have all kinds of resources on there. We keep our information up to date about the Kentucky program. And just kind of see if you want to get involved. If you're in Kentucky, reach out to us. We're just regular, normal people, and we're just out to help, our citizens in our community heal.
I love it. Thank you so much, Lauren. This has been a wonderful conversation. I think we've learned a lot. It's really kind of, there's many things I think people can actually go and research on their own from what you've said, even though we had this short
Yes.
time to talk. So, how
And
can,
anyone can reach out to me.
yes, so please tell us how they might do that.
It's simple. My email is just Lauren, LAUREN, at KYNORML.org.
Okay.